Imagine for a second, like, you're this heavily armored, battle-hardened adventurer,
Oh,
right?
yeah. You've spent your whole life doing the standard stuff, delving into damp, dark dungeons, fighting goblins.
Exactly. Poking every single stone tile with a 10-foot pole just to, avoid those spiked pit traps.
Right, the classic dungeon crawl.
Yeah. So after a totally grueling campaign, you step through this shimmering dimensional rift. Your sword is drawn. You are fully ready for a boss fight, like a fire-breathing dragon or a lich or something.
You're braced for the worst.
But instead, your eyes adjust to this bright light, and you're just looking at a giant, perfectly sentient egg.
Yes, an egg.
An egg, balancing on a stone wall, hurling like incredibly articulate insults right at your face.
It's such a surreal image.
It really is. And in that exact moment, you realize that the laws of physics, magic, every rule you thought you knew, they just completely go out the window. Welcome to a lethal wonderland.
It's basically the ultimate subversion of expectations in early tabletop gaming. I mean, this module takes everything players had been trained to expect and just flips it violently on its head.
And that is exactly what we're exploring today. Welcome to the deep dive, to you, the listener. Today we're heading back to 1983.
A great year for gaming.
Oh, totally. We've got this comprehensive archival report on a really bizarre, deeply fascinating piece of history. It's the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons module EX2, officially called The Land Beyond the Magic Mirror.
Yeah, and this adventure was written entirely by the game's co-creator, Gary Gygax, which is wild because it stands as this massive structural outlier in his whole bibliography. Like, it abandons traditional dungeon design entirely.
So our mission today is to figure out how Gygax took the whimsical rhyming nonsense of Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass and somehow translated it into a brutal, mind-bending, mechanical gauntlet.
Right, and what that tells us about the evolution of gaming.
Exactly. We're looking at the battle over realism and fantasy, and ultimately how a game can actually serve as a vessel for memory in grief. Okay, let's unpack this.
So, to really get what this adventure is, we kind of have to look at where it sits in the broader universe of the game.
Right, it's not just floating in a void somewhere.
Exactly. We aren't traveling to some disconnected galaxy. It's officially a partial plane. But the jarring part is where the entrance is.
Oh, the location is the best part.
It really is. So if a player looks at the classic Darlene map of the world of Greyhawk, which, was the quintessential super serious fantasy setting back then, this rift is just sitting in hex D486.
And that coordinate is vital, because it's literally right next to the ruins of Castle Greyhawk. That's the epicenter of traditional sword and sorcery.
Right in the middle of it.
It'd be like finding a portal to a Looney Tunes cartoon tucked away inside the throne room of Game of Thrones.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
Like, your characters are in this grim medieval world, they fall down a shaft, and suddenly they're trapped in this surreal forest that just defies all geography.
And what's fascinating here is how that physical proximity really highlights the central theme of the module, which is the total abandonment of normal fantasy tropes.
Because usually, there's a clear goal.
Right. Usually you've got a big bad evil guy, a dark lord, a lich hoarding gold, a princess to rescue. It's linear.
But looking at the archival materials, there's absolutely no apocalyptic threat here at all.
None. The environment itself is the enemy. The very concept of absurdity is the antagonist. Gygax is actively weaponizing what players expect to happen.
Which is so cruel, but so smart. Like, years of gaming condition you to know that a locked door means a trap or maybe treasure.
Right, there's a logic to it.
But in EX2, a door might just be a sentient creature with a really stubborn personality, and you have to debate philosophy with it before it lets you through.
It forces this complete psychological reset. You might see a pocket watch suddenly sprout little legs and sprint away.
And the players are just standing there like, wait, is that a clue?
Exactly. Is it a clue? A deadly monster, just set dressing. It pits rational wit against pure madness. And the NPCs you meet are, fundamentally deceptive.
It's honestly like expecting a standard, meticulously planned escape room, but you get locked inside a Salvador Dali painting instead.
Yeah.
And the exit door is actively mocking your intelligence. Like, take the red and white queens from the Carroll book.
Oh, this is a great example.
Right. In the module, they show up promising the players safe passage, royal titles, massive banquets, but under the hood, mechanically, they are malevolent, shape-shifting night hags pulling a massive con.
And night hags are incredibly dangerous in this system. I mean, they invade dreams, they paralyze you, they drain your life force.
So if you accept that banquet, you are literally inviting apex predators into your camp.
Yep. And then you've got Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Oh man, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. They look like these rotund, comical play-fighting guys, right?
Harmless comic relief. That's what any seasoned player would think.
Exactly. But the module stats them out as level 11 monks. In first edition AD&D, they have an armor class deep in the negative numbers.
Which means they are virtually unhittable, even for a high-level fighter.
Yeah, and their physical attacks have this mechanical, stunning strike that just instantly paralyzes you.
It uses the player's own genre savviness against them, but I think the most elegantly humiliating deception in the whole text is the walrus and the carpenter.
Oh, it's brutal. It weaponizes the actual social contract of the game.
It really does. Have you ever played a video game where the rules just change for one level purely to mess with you?
Yeah, all the time.
Well, that's what's happening here with pen and paper. The players find these two on a beach. The walrus and the carpenter beg for help, pointing out this priceless oyster bed in deep water.
But they claim they're cursed, right? Like they can't swim because the white rabbit cursed them.
Exactly. It's the ultimate bait for greedy adventurers. It relies on that classic quest giver trope where if someone has a problem, they'll reward you for fixing it.
So the players, strip off all their heavy magical plate armor. They dive into this dangerous water, risking drowning, fighting aquatic monsters.
Doing all this terrifying manual labor.
All of it, just to harvest these pearls. And the very second they drag them to the shore and hand them over, the walrus and the carpenter, who mechanically are expert swimmers, just dive gracefully into the ocean and vanish.
It's a complete, unadulterated confidence scam.
Just a straight-up heist.
And the players are just left standing on a beach in their undergarments, unrewarded. They weren't overpowered, they were just outsmarted by their own greed.
Which brings us to the actual combat. Because Gygax had to figure out how to take nonsense poetry and turn it into mathematical violence that could actually kill level 9 to 12 characters.
And high-level characters back then were basically walking arsenals.
Right. And Gygax refused to compromise the lethality just for a comedy theme. Take the Bandersnatch.
Oh, the Bandersnatch is terrifying.
In the poem, it's just something to avoid. But here, wait, what does it actually look like in the module?
It's statted as this incredibly fast-moving insectoid nightmare. It has 12 legs and the head of a simian.
Ugh, that's horrific.
Mechanically, it's built to just overwhelm frontline fighters through a sheer, relentless volume of attacks per round.
And then there's the apex predator of the partial plane, the Jabberwocky.
Right. Gygax designed the Jabberwocky as this colossal reptilian monster. It's basically a T-Rex with a massive armor-piercing horn on its head.
And it's totally immune to acid damage.
Completely immune, and its attack numbers will just tear a party apart. But Gygax programmed in this one incredibly specific, hidden vulnerability.
Which involves a weapon called Laprov. L-A-P-R-O-V, for anyone who likes anagrams. That's just Vorpal spelled backward.
Naturally.
And a Vorpal blade is famous for decapitating enemies on a critical hit. But Laprov is this highly uncooperative sentient sword.
Yeah, and sentient weapons in that era had an actual ego score.
Yeah.
They would wrestle for psychic control over the player.
It adds this profound layer of mechanical friction, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Like, if you want to swing at a monster, Laprov might demand you attack a tree instead.
And you have to make a charisma check, right?
Yes. If you fail, the sword literally drags your arm off target. It's just constantly arguing with you.
But if you do manage to hit the Jabberwocky with a Vorpal weapon, it triggers this brilliant puzzle boss mechanic.
The archival text says the moment it takes Vorpal damage, the Jabberwocky suffers a catastrophic psychological break.
It just becomes intensely terrified.
Ugh.
It applies these severe mathematical penalties to all its attack rolls, crippling the boss.
Right. But, and this is the big catch to trigger it, the players have to recognize the literary connection. They have to know the real-world poem where the Jabberwocky is slain by a Vorpal sword.
Okay, let me push back on this aggressively, though, because this touches on a massive controversy in game design.
The metagaming aspect.
Yes, I play RPGs to immerse myself, right?
Right.
Say I built a character who just smashes things with an axe. He has an intelligence score of 6. He cannot read.
Okay.
Why on earth should his survival depend on my personal, real-world ability to quote a 19th century Lewis Carroll poem? Doesn't that completely shatter the golden rule of avoiding metagaming?
Well, it feels antagonistic because you're looking at it through a modern lens.
What do you mean?
Today, the focus is all on immersive storytelling and character acting. But in 1983, the philosophy was fundamentally different. The character sheet was often just a vehicle.
Like just an avatar for the player.
Exactly, a mechanical avatar for the human sitting at the table. Gygax designed this as an intellectual war game. He was deliberately shifting the challenge away from the character's stats to test the actual player's real-world intellect and memory.
You definitely see that forced metagaming in the Chessboard Fields section.
Oh, the macro puzzle, yes.
The physical map is literally divided into alternating black and white squares, like a giant chessboard. Dark squares are forests, white squares are open grass.
And navigating this space is incredibly rigid. You can't just hack through the hedges separating the squares. They're magical.
Right. You have to use magical teleporting boats or ride these giant birds called rogs. And here's the kicker. You are forced to trace the movement patterns of actual chess pieces.
Right, so if you're on a mount that functions like a knight, you physically must move 2 squares forward and 1 square over.
Which means if you, the human player, don't know real-world chess rules, you literally cannot solve the spatial logic.
You can't.
Your characters are just trapped in an endless loop, fighting giant stag beetles until they die of attrition.
And this forced metagaming is actually the epicenter of a massive historical war over design philosophy happening at TSR right at this moment in 1983.
The Silver Age of TSR.
Yes.
So what does this all mean for the industry? Because the company had grown from this garage operation into a massive corporate enterprise, right?
Exactly, and its foundational design philosophy was fracturing. This exact year saw the dawn of the Hickman Revolution.
Led by Tracy and Laura Hickman?
Right. They demanded a completely new school of thought. They're the architects behind Ravenloft and Dragonlance.
Which are huge.
Massive. And the Hickmans argued for deep character drama, emotional realism, and architectural logic.
Technical logical logic, right.
Yeah.
A dungeon had to make sense as an ecosystem.
Precisely. If there's a monster in a stone room, what does it eat? Where is its water source? Why is it guarding this hallway? They wanted cinematic storylines.
So it's like comparing philosophies. The Hickman approach is like producing a meticulously researched historical drama.
Right.
But the Gygax approach, especially with EX2 and EX1, is like attending a chaotic improv comedy show where you might just get hit in the face with a pie at any second.
That's spot on. In his preface to the module, Gygax explicitly says it's a rebuke to enthusiasts who want realism. He's telling players to lighten up and see if they can outsmart a talking flower.
And reviewers at the time noticed this polarization, didn't they?
Oh yeah, Jim Bomber reviewed it in White Dwarf magazine. He gave it a 9 out of 10 for the sophisticated humor.
Wow, a 9 out of 10. But didn't he criticize something?
He did. He heavily criticized the rigid requirement that characters had to be level 9 to 12. The extreme lethality made it really hard to just drop into an ongoing campaign.
Because high-level magic in that era just broke the game's balance. Characters could fly, teleport, resurrect the dead. Normal monsters couldn't challenge them anymore.
Right, which is why Gygax used absurdity and spatial puzzles. But historically, the Hickman style of narrative realism ended up dominating the market for the next 30 years.
It really defined modern role-playing.
It did. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the chaotic DNA of EX2 never actually died.
It just went underground.
Exactly. Decades later, it served as the spark for the modern old-school renaissance, the OSR movement.
Which is this massive community that actively rejects heavy cinematic plots, right?
Right. They want that lethal, player skill-focused dynamic of the 70s and 80s back, where survival depends on your wints, not your stats.
And OSR designers look at EX2 as a sacred text. It proved a game master could run a nonsensical landscape without it becoming an unplayable joke.
You see its influence today in acclaimed works like A Red and Pleasant Land, which uses Carroll themes in a ruthlessly lethal way.
So on the surface, it's this combative funhouse. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the backstory.
Right. When archivists dug into where this text came from, they found it wasn't just a commercial product to fill a 1983 quota. It's deeply personal.
The origins go all the way back to the early 1970s. Gygax actually excavated these encounters from his own personal home campaign.
This was originally levels 10 through 20 of his legendary Castle Greyhawk mega dungeon.
Yep, deep beneath the castle, he and his co-DM, Rob Kuntz, placed these dimensional portals to other IP like King Kong, Skull Island, Oz, and Wonderland.
For their friends to explore. And it was play-tested by absolute pioneers.
Like Jim Ward, who played a thief named Renna the Blade. He mapped out the Wonderland sections and survived.
And Rob Kuntz ran his fighter, Robilar, with a small army of orc hirelings. Gygax even ran a version of this for Dr. Joyce Brothers during a promotional event.
Which is just wild to think about.
Totally. And we know definitively that it was pulled from his home notes because of a massive archival leak.
The Dragon magazine slip-up?
Yes. In an early issue, Gygax accidentally referred to the module by a cryptic code, GCS8X2.
And for years, people were baffled by that.
Until they realized it translates to Greyhawk Castle, South Level 8, Extra Dimensional Plane 2. He just let his basement filing system bleed into print.
The whole production was chaotic. There's even a famous printing anomaly where TSR somehow swapped the cover art for EX1 and EX2.
Oh, right. The cover of this module shows a fight from the other book, and vice versa.
And historians still debate if it was a genuine error or a deliberate meta joke by Gygax to confuse people before they even opened it.
Knowing him, a deliberate joke is entirely possible. But the real emotional core, the heart beating underneath all this madness, is Murlynd's house.
Yes. This is where the tone dramatically shifts away from Lewis Carroll into something wholly original.
The players walk into this house, and they're hit with a violent collision of magic and modern technology.
Right in the middle of a high fantasy world, they find a room with Victorian furniture, ashtrays with tobacco, and VHS tape players.
Wait, VHS tapes?
Yeah.
In a medieval fantasy game?
Yeah. And Gygax implements this highly punitive mechanical tension to handle it. Magic and technology are treated like matter and antimatter.
Like plugging a 120-volt appliance into a 240-volt socket.
Exactly. It short circuits. When these fantasy characters encounter technology, the rules state they experience visceral horror. They physically shudder.
And if they try to loot the VHS tapes or unscrew the light bulbs, there's a hidden mechanic. The tech acts as a grounding wire, actively draining and destroying the player's magical items.
Which is an elegant solution. It punishes greed, but practically it keeps the DM's medieval campaign from being permanently polluted by sci-fi stuff.
But the real story is why this house and the character of Murlynd exists at all. Murlynd wasn't just an NPC.
No, Murlynd was the player character of Don Kay.
And Don Kay was Gygax's childhood friend. They grew up together, played miniatures, and Kay was the co-founder of TSR. He helped fund the very first edition of D&D.
But in 1975, right as the dream was becoming a reality, Kay tragically died of a heart attack. He was only 36.
The interviews show Gygax was just devastated. So to honor him, he elevated Kay's character, Murlynd, into a canonical quasi-deity in the lore.
Murlynd was the White Paladin, a completely unique, rule-breaking, multi-class character. Paladin, magic user, and illusionist simultaneously.
And since real-life Don Kay loved the American Old West, Murlynd wore a Stetson hat, a duster, and used technological wands that fired metal projectiles.
His six-shooters.
His hog legs, yeah. Gygax took all those inside jokes and built them into Murlynd's house.
This raises an important question about how we use art and games to process grief. This module is a massive mechanical enshrinement of Don Kay.
It locks his quirks, his humor, his love for cowboys into this permanent, shared immortality. When you play it, you're stepping into a monument built by a grieving friend.
And it goes beyond just the house. The appendices act like a grimoire that injected Kay's ideas into the D&D canon forever.
Foundational spells came from this, like the Spell Aid, which grants temporary hit points.
That became a mandatory cleric spell in almost every subsequent edition.
And Phantom Steed, Whispering Wind, these incredibly utilitarian wizard spells entered the lexicon because of EX2.
Plus the specific combat spells, like Murlynd's Ogre, where you summon a terrifying illusion just to break enemy morale.
Or Murlynd's Void, which is basically a localized black hole that sucks enemies into an extra-dimensional space. His name is woven into the game's magic system forever.
It just proves that an RPG can be mathematically punishing and chaotic, while also being intensely sentimental.
It absolutely does. So, bringing this all together for you. The Land Beyond the Magic Mirror isn't just an excuse to roll dice against Humpty Dumpty, it's a primary historical document.
It captures an industry at a profound crossroads. It preserves the exact friction between the old-school mentality of testing the player's intellect and the new desire for cinematic storytelling.
And it proves that embracing absurdity, throwing out ecological logic and fair play, can create the ultimate test of problem solving. When you strip away everything a player expects, you find out how cleverly they can think under pressure.
It challenges the psychology of the player in a way very few modules have ever attempted.
We started this deep dive with an adventurer expecting a dragon, but finding a giant insulting egg instead.
The partial plane.
Yeah. And I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to ponder today. Gary Gygax built a lethal wonderland using the logic of a Victorian children's book, Chess Mechanics, and the inside jokes of his friends. But what about you? If someone were to design a partial plane based entirely on the bizarre internal logic, the niche inside jokes, and the unbreakable rules of your own mind, what specific, obscure, real-world knowledge would an explorer need just to survive it?